5 columns of smoke, one each afternoon for 5 days straight, rising above the jungle of the upper Xingu. On the 6th day, the smoke never came back, and with it vanished the trail of 3 men who would never be seen again. One of them was Percy Fawcett, the most famous explorer of his time. With him were his own son and his son's best friend. And here's what doesn't add up. For almost a century, more than 100 people have died or vanished trying to find out what happened to them. At the end, I'll tell you why the city Fawcett was searching for, the one everyone dismissed as fantasy, turned out not to be entirely a lie. Let's take this in order. Percy Harrison Fawcett was born on August 18, 1867 in Torquay, in the English county of Devon. He was a soldier, a mapmaker, and a surveyor. And above all, he was a man of almost impossible physical endurance. In 1906, the Royal Geographical Society sent him to settle a border dispute between Bolivia and Brazil by mapping an unmapped stretch of jungle between the two countries. It was a long and dangerous expedition, with giant snakes, piranhas, and slavers. But for Fawcett, it was a triumph. What the society expected to take 2 years, he finished in a few months. From then on, the Amazon became his obsession. Between 1906 and 1924, Fawcett led 7 expeditions through the Amazon basin. And somewhere on those journeys, he began to believe something his contemporaries considered pure madness. By around 1914, from his research in the archives, Fawcett had formed the idea of a lost city he called Zed, somewhere in the Mato Grosso. He theorized that a complex civilization had once existed there, and that isolated ruins might have survived. Where did he get that idea? From an old piece of paper, Fawcett came across a document known as Manuscript 512, held in the National Library of Brazil, attributed to the Portuguese bandeirante João da Silva Guimarães, but of doubtful authenticity. According to the document, in 1753, a band of bandeirantes discovered the ruins of an ancient city with Greco-Roman architecture, arches, a statue, and a temple covered in hieroglyphs. Now let's be honest here, today that manuscript is considered unreliable, and many historians treat it as little more than a legend. But Fawcett believed it, and he was willing to gamble his life on it. Curiously, Fawcett was a friend of the writer Arthur Conan Doyle, who used his Amazon field reports as inspiration for his novel, The Lost World. Reality and fiction were already blurring even before that final expedition, and that final expedition came in 1925. Fawcett had no shortage of volunteers, but he turned down figures like T.E. Lawrence, the famous Lawrence of Arabia, in favor of bringing his 21-year-old son, Jack, who shared his almost religious fervor for the theory of Z. Rounding out the group was Jack's best friend, Raleigh Rimmel. Fawcett had a deliberate plan. He chose only 2 companions to travel lighter and draw less attention from the indigenous tribes, since some of them were hostile to outsiders. And he made a decision that feels chilling today. Fawcett left instructions that, if the expedition did not return, no rescue party should be sent, so that would-be rescuers wouldn't meet the same fate. On April 20, 1925, the final expedition set out from Cuiabá. Along with Jack and Rimmel, they were joined by 2 Brazilian laborers, 2 horses, 8 mules, and a couple of dogs. The going was brutal from the start. In those first weeks, insects were the greatest threat. Swarms of mosquitoes and gnats made sleep impossible, and Rimmel's foot swelled badly from tick bites. Even so, Fawcett kept up a punishing pace of 10 to 15 miles a day. On May 29th, they reached a place heavy with foreboding. That day, the team arrived at Dead Horse Camp, the spot where Fawcett had once had to put down his exhausted horse and turn back during an earlier search for Z. The name came from the animal he'd been forced to kill there 5 years before, and it sat on the threshold of territory no outsider had ever mapped. Fawcett had just handed the guides a bundle of letters and dispatches to carry back to civilization. From that camp came his last letter, written to his wife, Nina. "We shall disappear from civilization until next year. Picture us, in forests never before trodden by civilized man." And then, truly, they disappeared. The guides turned south toward the settlements. Fawcett, Jack, and Raleigh pushed north into the forest. The 2 Brazilians were the last people with any link to the outside world to see them alive, and then silence. An indigenous messenger carried the letter out of the forest. After that, the dispatches stopped. There was never another word. This is where the second mystery begins. Why it took so long for anyone to worry? Fawcett had warned that he would be out of contact. He had said his expedition would go silent once it entered unknown territory, but by 1927, nearly 2 years had passed, with no word of the colonel or his young companions. The Royal Geographical Society declared the men lost in January 1927, almost 2 years after the group's last message. And then the real tragedy began. Not Fawcett's, the tragedy of those who went looking for him. In all, 13 expeditions would be launched in an effort to learn Fawcett's fate, and more than 100 people would lose their lives or join the explorer in vanishing into the jungle. It's one of the darkest paradoxes of this story. The man who asked that no one rescue him dragged dozens to his same fate. For decades, objects surfaced that looked like clues but turned out to be mirages. Over the years, tempting traces of his expedition appeared. A nameplate in 1927, a theodolite in 1933, even his signet ring in 1979. None of them settled anything. So what happened to them? The most cited account came decades later. In 1952, the anthropologist Orlando Villas Boas announced that he had found the explorer's bones and that the Kalapalo people had confessed to killing him. According to that reconstruction, something went terribly wrong along the way. Having arrived without gifts, a serious breach of protocol, and with every member of the expedition more or less gravely ill, the Kalapalo tribe they encountered decided to kill them. The bodies of Jack Fawcett and Raleigh Rimmel were thrown into the river. Colonel Fawcett, seen as an old and therefore distinguished man, was given a proper burial. But be careful, because Rigor forces us to slow down here. That version is not a certainty. The Kalapalo themselves have denied it, and their oral tradition tells a different story. Many assumed the local people killed them, since several tribes were nearby. The Kalapalo, the last to see them, along with the Aruma, the Suya, and the Javante, into whose territory they were heading. The Kalapalo have an oral account of 3 explorers arriving and heading east, and after 5 days, noticing that the group no longer lit any fires. The Kalapalo say a very violent tribe most likely killed them. And there again are the 5 columns of smoke we started with. 5 fires, and on the 6th day, nothing. Historical honesty demands saying it plainly. No bodies were ever conclusively identified. Disease, starvation, an attack. We don't know for certain. And now, the twist I promised you. For decades it was said that Fawcett had died chasing a fairy tale, that Z never existed. The Amazon, people believed, was too barren to have ever supported great civilizations. But modern archaeology has turned that idea on its head. Researchers believe Fawcett may have been influenced by information from indigenous peoples about the archaeological site of Kuhikugu, near the headwaters of the Xingu River. In other words, in the very region where he disappeared, complex real settlements once existed. And there's more. In 2022, the remains of settlements near the Llanos de Mojos were studied with LIDAR. The sites contain the ruins of mounds, causeways, and other infrastructure, backing up Fawcett's theory of ancient settlements in the Amazon. Though those found in the Llanos de Mojos don't match the description given in manuscript 512. There lies the final irony. Fawcett was right about the big picture and wrong about the details. There was no city of gold with Greco-Roman temples, as that dubious manuscript fantasized. But beneath the jungle, there were forgotten civilizations, far more sophisticated than anyone in his time believed. He died searching for a false legend that hid a real truth. And his body, like the cities he chased, still lies hidden beneath the same green that swallowed him a century ago.